Welcome to DAX Machina, with your hosts, Naoma Finn, Steve Wildman Munrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to DAX Machina.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us tonight on DAX Machina. Happy to have you guys with us tonight. Joining me tonight is Anthony Canatella. He's been on the show once before, and I think you guys will probably remember him. But Anthony, go ahead and just for the people that might not have remembered the show or been there for it, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Live in Florida. Came to order DA when he was on Carrie Arnold with Carrie Arnold, and I had my own sighting and stuff, and me and him just hit it off, became friends and stuff. So here I am.
Well, I'm glad you're here tonight, man. Appreciate you joining me.
No, thank you, man. Thank you.
We're going to be digging into the story behind the man and the myth, Aleister Crowley. Kind of an odd fellow. I mean, he was born in England back in about 1875, somewhere around there. Most famous for being an occult icon and founding his own religion, which is really pretty bizarre. But the more you dig into the guy, the weirder the story just gets. It's kind of like one of the things we're famous for on here is just those down the rabbit hole stories. And Aleister Crowley is no exception. The more you look into it, just the more strange his life becomes. And it's a pretty interesting story. I'm glad you guys are here tonight, and I think we're going to have a good time with this. Anthony, do you know much about Aleister Crowley?
No, not much at all. Only from what you told me. And I'm pretty knowledgeable of a lot of crazy stuff that we talk about, but not him. So,
well, I was going to joke and say that everything I knew about Aleister Crowley I knew from the song "Mr. Crowley" by Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh yeah.
It's a great song.
Yeah, it's true.
But the guy is just really, unique. I mean, and I hate to just throw that word out there, but he really is. I mean, he was an occultist. He practiced ceremonial magic. He wrote poetry. He painted. He wrote books, and he was a mountain climber. I mean, who does all of that? I mean, the guy traveled the world doing weird stuff. He studied Hinduism. He studied Buddhism. He studied the occult. Everywhere he could go, everywhere he could, every place he could be. It was just, and the really weird part was during World War II, he was an outspoken advocate. During World War II, he lived here in the States, but he wrote for a pro-German paper. That was like trying to rally support for the Germans. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's actually postulated that he might have been the one that suggested that the Germans sink the Lusitania.
Oh, really?
Because they were like, the U.S. will surely stay out of the war if you sink the Lusitania. But that's really what brought us into
the war, right?
But come to find out years later that he was actually a double agent working for British intelligence, that really? He was setting the Germans up. And it's just really weird, these really odd inconsistencies that keep popping up with this guy. I mean, it's insane. Let's go check some of the comments.
Josh is blind. Yeah, Josh is on.
John Abraham says, one question, sir. Will you ever release Grandpa's coffee ingredients? To quote Grandpa, I will one day, but not today. Let's see if I missed any others. One of these days, I'll share Grandpa's coffee recipe. But I would be more likely to, like, if you guys ever meet us at a Bigfoot gathering or a camp out, that I will make it, but I won't tell you what's in it. Bizzle A says, I heard Crowley started a ritual, left his house and went to a party and stayed away for several days, then came back and finished the ritual. Yeah, he's just that kind of weird. I mean, he did all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Tracy Bennett says, I bought a book that had his writings. I get rid of it because of worry that portals could be open. Yeah, again, it wouldn't surprise me. The guy was into all kinds of stuff just all across the board. Seeing if there's any other questions. John Doe says Germany was heavily involved in the occult, at least in the Second World War. Yeah. Hitler set people scour the world looking for occult artifacts. And Crowley just, I think his entire personality was basically built for that. I mean, when you look at him, he was always a weird kid, but he attended some of the best schools England had to offer. His family was wealthy, but then his father, his parents were actually a member of like this really odd fundamentalist Christian sect called the Plymouth Brethren, and he kind of rebelled against that pretty early because it was like one of those absolute, like, almost Amish level, very, very strict religions, and he rebelled against that pretty early. He didn't fit too well with that paradigm, but then he went on to do stuff like travel India and China to climb mountains and to learn different styles of practical magics and healing techniques. He founded a religion called what was it called? The Thelemites or Thelema. But the dude was actually indoctrinated into a German-based group called the Ordo Templi Orientis, which is one of those weird, like, almost Illuminati level secret societies, very, very similar to what we were talking about earlier about like Masonic groups and stuff like this. These were occult groups that were heavily underground, and he was big into all of these movements. But when because the dude was so smart, it all really appears like the British intelligence recruited him like straight out of college, and the weirder he got, the more circles he was able to get into. Right. So I don't know if the guy was crazy or an absolute genius, because if he was turned by British intelligence and brought into the fold, the dude got British intelligence in places that they would never have gotten, like inside China. I mean, they were. The dude traveled freely all over the world because of all these occult circles he moved in. Yet at the same time, even the Brits admitted later, like in the late 60s before he passed away, that he'd been working for him for years. So it's really nuts. And I find the more I read about the guy, granted the whole occult aspect kind of freaks me out. Yeah. Because I'm not so much into seances and opening portals and stuff like that. But if you look at the other stuff he did, it's almost a pattern. If you know what I'm talking about, it's almost like the whole thing was contrived to make him look absolutely crazy. And the dude did all kinds of stuff back when nobody was doing stuff like that. I mean, he was a known drug user. He founded a religion and wrote a book called the Book of Law. Supposedly he was contacted by a supernatural entity named Iwas, and he was announcing the start of the Eon of Horus. So there was a lot of Egyptology mixed into it as well.
Yeah, he was borderline crazy. Well.
Yeah, he was out there. But again, you look at the British intelligence connection, you wonder how much of that was staged and how much of it was real.
Right.
I mean, go ahead, man.
I'm just saying it just some of the stuff, you know, even with the Brits, you know, what is it, MI6?
Yeah.
They get it, you know, like our intelligence agency too. I mean, some of the stuff they get into is pretty crazy. You know, a lot of people don't realize the stuff that goes on. So I figured you'd have to be borderline crazy to do some of that stuff that he was doing. I mean, back in the day.
Yeah.
So
he was involved in a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, not just British intelligence, but he moved in some really weird circles. The guy wrote some of the. Well, I looked up some of his poetry and read a few of them, and his poetry was just plain bizarre. I mean, just bizarre. But then he's written books. He was like a renowned mountain climber. In fact, there's one of the mountains I believe it was in the Alps that he solo climbed, which is pretty astounding. I mean, to solo climb a big mountain, it takes a special kind of athlete and a special kind of crazy, because one, I don't like heights, and two, I mean, that's just that takes a whole set of dedication that I don't think I would ever do. Mountain climbing is a strange sport.
Yeah.
I just don't see the appeal. I mean, number one, I don't like heights, but number two, I mean, I've never looked up at this giant peak of rock and went, I'm not resting until I climb that.
Yeah, let me climb that. Yeah, no, I'm not into that either. No.
I figure if I needed to be up there, that's why they invented helicopters.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be in top physical condition to even do that kind of stuff. So let's see.
We got a newcomer to the channel. 71 Vega Man says, new to the channel from Massachusetts. Hi. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, man.
That's a great opportunity. If you are new to the show and your first time with us, hit that like and subscribe button on the channel, and make sure you hit that alarm bell so you're notified anytime we go live. Apologies, folks. Northwood Scripted says mountain climbing is no big thing, but flying is different. Yes and no. I would take an airplane over climbing a mountain anytime.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm not real keen on dangling over a chasm on a rope. That just doesn't sound like it would get fun to me.
No. Well, what kind of stuff did this guy go? I mean, what kind of stuff did he do for us?
I don't know what much he did for the United States. He was a British citizen. He lived here for a while. He actually owned a house on the shores of Loch Ness, and it's rumored that he had a Loch Ness monster sighting. Once he bought land in Scotland and had that, he proclaimed himself a Scottish laird, and would appear in public in full kilt and everything. The dude was kind of odd.
Oh man, what happened?
Sorry, I was trying to catch up on some of the comments. John Doe's right. He says the line between crazy and genius is determined by success. Well, he did have a pretty big measure of success. I mean, the guy's a published author. He wrote volumes of poetry, some of it really freaking bizarre. Created his own religion. Essentially started the modern paganism movement.
Really?
Yeah. The Wicca is basically founded off of everything he wrote. Wicca, contrary to what a lot of people believe, Wicca is not actually dated back to the witches of Salem. It was the modern version of Wicca was created in the 60s by Raymond Buckland and a couple other people. But one of the basic tenets of Wicca is "and it harm, do what thou wilt." Well, that's taken directly from Crowley. Crowley, his philosophy said, "Do what thou wilt," and he says, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." And so the first tenet of Wicca, "Do and it harm none, do what thou wilt," is taken directly from Crowley. He had a wide-ranging, reach and effect on things from years to come. I mean, the dude helped introduce the practice of Raja Yoga to the West. He brought about a lot of herbal remedies that we never heard of out of China.
This guy got around.
Oh yeah, he traveled the world. He went and saw some of the craziest places, like climbed some of the ruins in Mexico. He climbed mountains in Mexico. When you start digging into what this guy's done, he had a finger in so many pies that it's really kind of odd. I mean, just to think this guy that most everybody thinks of as some quasi-religious kook from the early part of the century actually helped shape a lot of modern practices. It's just really, really bizarre. I mean, I keep saying that, but once you start looking into this guy, it's really going down the rabbit hole to find all the connections that spiderweb out from this guy. He was into black magic. He was into, any type of occult lore he could gather. He traveled the world to collect. Be that secret societies. Allegedly, he was a Freemason.
Really?
We don't know if that was true or not, but he claimed he was inducted into the Freemasons when he was living in Mexico. I would take him at his word. I mean, the guy dabbled in so much occult stuff. To find out he was also involved in Masonry doesn't shock me in any way, shape, or form.
No. I mean, even like you said, he was working for the Brits also. I mean, so if he worked for the Brits and us, who else did he work for?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we definitely know he was involved in a lot of weird stuff involving the Brits, and I think he was able to be a successful double agent because he was involved in the Nazi sympathizers here in the United States during World War II, and he was able to get British intelligence a foothold into that organization, which anybody else probably wouldn't have been able to do. Because he was so into all kinds of weird stuff, the Germans were like, "Sure, come on in."
Yeah.
Because he was already involved in British occult in German occult practices, so they just thought he was one of them.
It's weird how our government goes outside of the realm. I mean, even with what was it, Lucky Luciano? They had him go to Sicily to organize, to have our troops land in Sicily.
He helped facilitate the invasion of Sicily.
Yeah, and people don't really realize that. I think, or you go outside the realm. I mean, so
I kind of touched on the Lucky Luciano bit for some of the lore of the characters in the books, the Giovanni twins. The Giovanni triplets. I'm sorry, the two brothers and the sister that I introduced in the fourth book of the Apex Predator series. That are direct descendants of Lucky Luciano.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff people don't realize. The government goes outside the agencies to go have people do stuff. What is it for?
Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with some of the comments again.
Yeah, I'm looking at them too.
Bizzle A says portals,
Ouch.
demon summoning, ritual magic, sex magic, even with children, intelligence gathering, started a religion, teacher, author. This dude was doing big things. Not that I agree with those things. I'm right there with you. Some of the stuff he did is just, beyond out in left field. But it's almost like it was too out in left field, if you know what I mean.
Right.
His behavior was just so off the charts for him to continually be thought crazy that he insinuated himself into some places that you never would have thought he would have made it.
Yeah.
Werewolf 5674 says sounds like he was searching for a way to move outside the body or a higher plane. Yeah, he was definitely doing stuff like that. He again, like I said, he was into a lot of weird pies. There we go. John Doe says, the point of a secret society like the Masons is to be secret.
Yeah.
Good point. And God knows how many of these secret societies he was part of. Some people have speculated they have asked about a possible Illuminati connection, but again, I don't know a whole lot about the Illuminati. It's not something I ever really dug too much into, but for him to be involved in so many of these secret societies, it wouldn't surprise me that he was in some way involved in like almost like an overreaching group, like a group that kind of oversaw all of these groups. Just totally weird stuff. And the occult lore is not is just the kind of the tip of the iceberg with it.
Right.
Yeah, he was into weird occult stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, the fact that he was able to move basically unchecked all over the world. He went wherever he wanted. He did whatever he wanted to do, and nobody even really tried to stop him. I mean, even his own parents, couldn't control the guy. His mother referred to him as the Beast. my mother called me a lot of things, but never the Beast.
Mine either. I got called Jesus Christ, everything else, but not that. Yeah. What did Josh? Josh made a comment. It was funny. Where was it?
Masons aren't that secret.
Yeah. And then who else?
Shandor says they aren't very good at it, the CIA, but they certainly try almost any idea, reasonable or not. Yeah, you can see the origins of what the CIA has tried in MK Ultra and some of the other programs they tried when they would involuntarily expose people to LSD and things that. Yeah, they did. It's been when it comes to intelligence communities, they'll try almost anything. But Crowley's just kind of one of those really bizarre figures that I don't think we'll ever really know the full truth of the guy. He just because he had so many fingers and so many pies, I don't know that we'll ever really know exactly what he knew.
Oh, Fred from Alaska made a good comment.
Yeah, Fred says he was the first one to draw a gray alien demon. Just saying. Again, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if he was really a firm believer in some of these rituals and occult lore, he could have been the last quote unquote wizard of our time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was truly involved.
He was that
in
tuned. He was
like a master level acolyte in several of these organizations. Mm-hmm. So if there's anybody that you could go, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that guy was a freaking wizard.
Right.
That would probably be the guy. Hold on. Josh Jones says, John, what if that was the joke? If he was a magical practitioner and all the tomfoolery was just to throw people off? Sometimes genius is confused with insanity.
Insanity, yeah.
Look at Albert Einstein. I mean, the guy was absolutely out there. He had everything in his closet was the exact same. He had the exact identical same shirt, suits, shoes, all of that, because he didn't want to waste his brain power on stupid decisions like that. So he wore the same outfit literally every day. He didn't sleep like normal people. He would take like 20-minute cat naps and then get up and go back to work. And if he got tired, he'd lay down and he would take them in a roll-top desk. That's the really funny part about Einstein is he would sleep inside a roll-top desk.
I never knew that, really.
It's nuts.
Well, what's his name? Hemingway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hemingway was kind of out there.
He was a little bit out there too. I mean, you get all these guys. What is it? Eccentric that are just the Unabomber. The guy that was the Unabomber. Same way, brilliant guy.
Well, they say anybody that is possessed of that high of an IQ generally has some form of counterbalancing mental illness. And I'm not saying that's in every case,
right?
But if you look at a lot of the people that were considered geniuses down through the centuries, they also had some weird personal habits.
Oh yeah,
that could be easily ascribed to mental illness. I mean, they, the high IQs, when people with extreme imaginations, are some of the people that most often experience night terrors. My oldest son, very very smart kid. He had night terrors for a long time, and my wife has experienced them. I never have. I mean, night terrors it fascinates me, especially when you start looking into night terrors around the world. People report across the globe that have these night terrors. And if you're not familiar with what night terrors are, it's when when you're laying in bed and you open your eyes and you feel like you're awake, but you can't move your body, and generally something is approaching you. Most people that experience night terrors describe one of two things. They describe a strange man with a wide brim hat, or what they call the hag, which is like an old witch, but they're made like out of black shadow, and they keep coming towards you. And those two descriptions are the most common described across the planet. And it's weird that people that are having night terrors describe the same thing. It seems to me like it's almost like they're describing a demon.
Yeah, it could be.
To me, that makes the most sense. And it's things that terrify people, and kind of terrify people across the board. But so odd that they describe it's like one of those flat brimmed, wide brimmed Puritan hats.
Like a Quaker hat.
Yeah, like a Quaker hat. They describe it as being a man, a completely black shadow man wearing one of those style hats, or like what they describe as the hag or the witch, which is terrifying in and of itself.
And all these people are having the same, visual occurrence.
And night terrors seem to occur most often in people with IQs of above about 120. And maybe that's why I never had them. I'm just a lunkhead from a farm in Missouri.
Yeah, me too. That's why I don't get them.
Bizzalay says, I misspoke earlier. It was L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, aerospace engineer and rocketeer, who are Americans who heavily studied Crowley. Crowley's influenced a lot of people over the years. John Doe says, high IQ and extreme imaginations typically revolve around being able to make connections others cannot.
Very true.
He said, when it says this becomes an issue when you start making connections that don't exist. And of course, chemical imbalance in the brain's likely something to do with it, which seems to be common among people with extraordinarily high IQs.
Yeah, I dealt with somebody that had paranoia, all that stuff, but was smart as a whip. I mean, just stuff that would blow you away. But yeah.
Greg Price points out, he says, the beast from Poltergeist. Yeah, it was very much like that wide-brimmed hat guy. Josh Jones says, if the brain is not in balance, a portion of it suffers when another area is extreme, i.e. Einstein. Some geniuses are crazy because their intelligence destroys the balance. Same way with extremely creative people.
Right.
And people that I'm not necessarily trying to include myself on here because I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to bend my arm back and pat myself on the back. But people that are extremely creative tend to not be able to shut their imaginations off, especially when they're sleeping. I describe it to my wife as writing scenes for my books in my dreams. I often dream about the next scene in my books, but I know some people who are writers who have just the worst nightmares, and it seems to follow creative types. A lot of the old expression about tortured artists, people who are extremely gifted painters often have some of the worst nightmares and visions. And that explains some of the artwork you see that's just absolutely terrifying.
Well, look at Da Vinci. Da Vinci, they thought he was crazy. I mean, one of the other authors, Stephen King. He's out there too.
Josh Jones says extreme creatives also usually suffer from some sort of a depression. Again, that leans into the imbalance. Yeah.
He's right about that. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I experienced it firsthand.
Seeing if I missed any more. Northwood says weird people. Look at Howard Hughes. Yeah, that guy was an unmitigated genius, and he went nuts.
Oh, he was. Life. Yeah, that movie they made about him. That was crazy.
Keith Keith Van Rensselaer has a good point. This was Crowley. He spent his honeymoon in Egypt and slept in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. Yeah, the guy did some really weird stuff. And I don't know how he got access to the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid at Giza. I mean, archaeologists still struggle to get access to the pyramids today. And this guy spent his honeymoon, the night of his honeymoon, in it. I mean, how do you pull that stuff off?
I don't know, man. People, who knows? Who knows? How many people we got on tonight?
Right now we've got about 50 watching live. And Crowley seems to be one of those that's very much like that. The guy was extremely intelligent. I mean, the dude, I believe he went to Oxford, and was like, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Oxford, it was Cambridge. And he received high marks. I mean, he never took a degree. Every time he would get close to completing a degree, he'd switch to some other field of study. So he never actually got a degree in anything, but he had advanced studies in, a dozen different subjects. And then, that was before he even started traveling the world and investigating some of these like occult societies,
right,
and things like that. I mean, the dude had poems published in the Cambridge publications, the Granta, Cambridge Magazine, and the Cantrab. He was all published in all of those. He went through, every year he went to the Alps to climb mountains, up until the late 1800s. He would go up to the Alps to ascend mountains as a vacation every year. In 1897, he made the first ascent of a mountain called the Manche, without a guide. He did it solo. And to free climb one of the mountains in the Alps is just astounding.
Oh, yeah. I know.
It's bizarre, some of the stuff this guy did. So not only would he had to be very intelligent, he had to be very physically fit, because mountain climbing is not a game for the weak.
Well, being in the service, even when we go, you take a ruck. Come on. I mean, that would whoop your ass,
Yeah. And that's basically carrying every piece of equipment you need up at times almost a vertical slope.
Right.
Definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, and this guy's he's climbing it.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I guess the equipment wasn't that, advanced like it is for mountain climbing. So.
I think he really wanted to prove to the world that he was a serious mountaineer. And some of the mountaineering groups of the time, including the Scottish Mountaineering Club, which is was at the time one of the preeminent mountain climbing groups in the world, they recognized his accomplishments. So, I mean, he climbed the Burmese Alps, he climbed the Eiger, the Trift, the Jungfrau, Mönch, and the Wetterhorn.
Really?
And for him to have climbed all of those mountains, that's pretty advanced. I mean, that's not a hobbyist. That's not a guy that hikes a already proven trail up to the top of a small cliff. This is a guy that ascended major mountains in the Alps. So and the fact that he did that, hell, in at least at one case he did that without anybody with him, is just astounding to me.
That's dangerous too.
Yeah, it's it's dangerous, and two, being not a fan of heights, it kind of freaks me out to think of even doing it. I mean, if I watch a movie and they have a scene where somebody's falling, I get almost a panic attack. I mean, I really hate heights, so I just can't imagine climbing mountains for fun. I mean, it's one of those things like for fun, I like to walk through active minefields.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why would you want to walk through an active minefield? Just to prove I can.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel about climbing mountains. I mean,
those guys that climb mountains without any gear. What is it? What do they call it? Free climbing? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Not going to happen. No. What's this saying?
Werewolf 5674 says some people think that when you climb a mountain, you're ascending to a higher plane or closer to God. I can understand how you would feel that way because the air is so freaking thin, you're hallucinating.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've been up in the high mountains. I mean, I haven't climbed one, but I've driven through like Rocky Mountain passes and stuff, and I've hiked in Rocky Mountain National Park, and I drove through Wolf Creek Pass, and you can look down off the side and see vehicles that are down there that they'll never be able to get out because it's too far.
Oh yeah.
And at those kind of altitudes, I've already noticed that the difference in the thin air, and you can get lightheaded pretty quick. But I can't imagine like going full on physical exertion climbing a mountain at elevations way higher than I've been. And I don't know. I just, it's like when they climb Everest, they have to climb with oxygen.
Oh yeah.
Big oxygen tanks with them because the air is so thin.
Yeah.
And in fact, when they reach the first base camp of Everest, they have to spend several days there acclimating to the thin atmosphere.
To the altitude.
Yeah, the altitude, or it can kill them. I mean, it can kill people. So, and can you imagine being the first guy to climb the mountain that didn't know that? Like, screw it, I can make it. Makes it a few more thousand feet over, just feels a few more thousand feet up, just keels over from lack of the oxygen.
Well, what was it? What was that? That one group that died up there, right?
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of bodies left on Everest,
and they can't find half of them.
I think that wasn't too terribly long ago that they actually found the body of Edmund Hillary.
Really?
And it's weird to me to want to climb something that has a really good chance of killing you.
Yeah, I just don't. It doesn't. I don't. That to me either.
I understand, like from my career in law enforcement and being in the military, I understand that there's moments when you have no choice but to charge the enemy. You've got to charge headlong into danger,
right?
And you voluntarily risk your life to save someone else's or to protect your comrades. I get that. I totally understand that, but nobody's making them climb those mountains.
No.
And I don't understand risking your life just to summit a peak.
No, it's like Doc when he says he flies. He's flying. You ain't catching me in a plane with somebody else. I'm sorry. I don't even like flying in an airline.
John Doe says, I don't know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. No, the world may never know.
Exactly. That'll be a mystery.
Greg Price has got a good point. He says Crowley climbed before they used supplemental oxygen too, didn't he? Yeah, they didn't start using extra oxygen tanks until more recent times. I mean, he climbed most of these mountains
without it,
from the late 1800s all the way up to like the 1930s and 40s. The dude was really out there. AJ Congdon says in Werewolf, and if you oops, you might get to meet him. Greg Price says, for that matter, sports teams playing in Denver have to arrive sometime to get there before their games to acclimate. Yeah. And if you watch prior to the games, if you watch the games that they play in Denver, the visiting team will often have oxygen masks on the sidelines. Yeah. So these guys can reoxygenate their blood.
No, even when at the drag strip for quarter mile racing. I mean, I know somebody that took a car from Florida and brought it up, up there to race. And the car ran horrible. And, they were trying to get the gas mixture and the oxygen mixture in the fuel to run. I mean, it messes with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That thinner atmosphere can affect a lot of things. Werewolf 5674 says the altitude problem was happening a lot in early aviation. Once they broke 12,000 feet, they had to learn the hard way that you can't do that without some kind of oxygen. And that's why modern aircraft, like especially passenger planes, have pressurized cabins, and fighter jets will have the oxygen mask they can put on. Josh Jones says, it's about defeating something bigger than yourself to leave a mark on this world that very few others will accomplish. Some people climb mountains, others change science, while others write classics. I can get that, but still part of me just doesn't understand. I mean, I don't know. I can't explain it. It just doesn't.
You don't have to explain it to me. I'm not going to get in a plane and jump out with a parachute because for fun, and it can happen, But like you said, when you're doing a job, there's certain things you have to do to do that job. So, but I think Josh is right though. He's trying to somebody we try to make a mark in this world. I think everybody does.
I understand wanting to do something that very few other people have done, but just look how many people die mountain climbing. I mean, it's a dangerous sport, and I don't know. I personally wouldn't do it, but to each their own, I suppose. There are people that do want to have that challenge, I guess. Irene Duet says people climb mountains because they're there. It's a challenge. North Cryptid says, "Why jump out of a perfectly good airplane?"
Yeah, my dad would say there's only two things that fell out of the sky: bird shit and assholes. That's what he would say.
Lene Perkins says, "I saw an episode of Street Outlaws in Colorado where they talked about the thin air affecting the cars."
Yeah, she's right. Something other than that. Okay, yeah.
No, Lenita says, I would if I knew my chute would open for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be scared to death that somebody was pissed off when they were loading my parachute.
Yeah. And you don't pack your own chute. The chute packers do it for you. So somebody goes out the night before drinking and they're having a bad day.
Or they're half hung over and forget the pack part of it.
Right.
That would be my luck. Meg Mill says, watching linemen on the high tension wires is something to watch. I used to do where I lived. Yeah, I think that's really cool that people are able to do that. But again, I do not like heights in any way, shape, or form. There's no way I could do that. They couldn't get me up on one of those those high tension towers at gunpoint. Sorry, I was checking.
No, I'm looking at it. Again. I'm looking at him too.
But talking more about Crowley, I mean, his influence has gone global. I mean, love him or hate him, and I'm not saying that I particularly like the guy because he was into some pretty weird crap. But at the same time, you've got to respect some of the things he accomplished. It's just really, really weird. And then you throw in the fact that it's very likely he spent most of his adult life working for British intelligence. That just makes the mystery around the guy deepen.
Did he have any kids?
I don't know. I don't remember reading anything about him having kids. But he was like into weird sexual rites and sex magic, and it was known to pick up prostitutes all over England, and the dude had half the venereal diseases known to man, including gonorrhea and syphilis. But he had affairs with married women, and I mean the dude was all over the place. But then you look at some of the stuff that he accomplished on top of that, and you're like, on one hand, this guy is an absolute whack job, but on the other, what the hell? If it turns out to be true that he was working for British intelligence, that right there, you don't know what he might have contributed to the war effort, because they'll probably never declassify that.
Crystal Laws said it's been suggested that Barbara Bush was his daughter. Oh, really? That's a little bizarre. Bit, yeah, that's a little bit crazy there.
Wow.
Well, that answers the question right there for the administration. Oh, I didn't know that. I just seen that.
Greg Price says, was Crowley the prototype for Ivo Shandor? Ivo Shandor was the guy they quoted on Ghostbusters, correct? If I remember correctly. I think you're right. So. I think he was based on Crowley.
Actually looked like him too, didn't he?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Northwood Scripted says, with all those diseases, it sounded like he was in the Philippines.
Yeah, Subic Bay. That's where he was.
Yeah. Crystal Law says there's a lot of evidence to support it, talking about the Bush's daughter
Really?
thing. That
Didn't know that.
I'm Bush's wife. I mean Barbara Bush. That does not surprise me. I mean,
They're related. Jim Ruger
Yeah.
said they're related. Wow, that's crazy.
Greg Price says if Crowley was MI5 or 6, they'll never admit it because that says something uncomfortable about how the British government operates. Well, you kind of look at some of the stuff that the British have done down through the years, and yeah, you can kind of see that kind of thing. I mean, the Royals alone have done enough weird shit in the last 150 years to, it was suspected that Jack the Ripper might have been a British royal. I mean,
right.
And then you look at some of the crap that British politicians have gotten into. Of course, American politicians are no better, but it's just really bizarre crap that the British have been involved in. So, thinking that Crowley might have actually been a under the radar operative for MI6 really doesn't shock me. I mean, it makes a lot of sense about some of the stuff he did and was able, the places he went, because some of them he's just like, okay, if he was a student of this, why did he do this? Because he studied Egyptology and then he went and studied Buddhism and would like experiment in all kinds of weird different forms of the occult, some of them which were very different from each other.
Right. It's
almost like he was either trying to combine his knowledge or using that knowledge to get into places that he wouldn't normally be able to get access to. John Abrams says he's a lot like Rasputin. Yeah, I can see that. He's a very Rasputin-like figure. The dude moved through multiple layers of society, and if it's true that his daughter was Barbara Bush, he certainly moved through a lot of weird layers of society.
I mean, come on. I mean, all that stuff with the politics and politicians, you're ready for that. Right off the bat.
Northwood Scripted says a politician equals the south end of a north-facing horse. You're not wrong. That's like on every side of the spectrum. That's politicians in general.
Yeah.
Greg says, can you imagine if someone combined Crowley and Nikola Tesla?
Ooh. Yeah, that'd be dangerous.
Yeah. And it makes you, considering the weird background and involvement of Ozzy Osbourne, no wonder he wrote a song about Aleister Crowley. Ozzy was a student. Well, of course he's British too. Was a student of the occult for the longest time. So there's little doubt that he probably studied Crowley at some at length.
Was there anything documented on him about mission statements or anything that he did?
No, there's no actual formal documentation of anything he was directly involved in. A lot of it is just like, basically when he talked about, the fact that he had been recruited by the British, so the other things started making sense.
Okay.
I mean, the dude, traveled through Burma and China, was alleged to have, spent a lot of time smoking opium throughout China. He traveled everywhere. I mean, the dude has been all over the world, and then he created that religion that he called Thelema. The practitioners were called Thelemites, and it was based on a lot of what he learned in Egypt. Really, really bizarre stuff. And he had a lot of ties to like British royals, and he was known in a lot of circles on multiple levels in throughout Europe. The Ordo Templis Orientis, which was basically a German occult order, a secret order, where they explored all types of occult references throughout European history. He was involved in that. Another group called the Mysteria Mystica Maxima, or MMM. That's where they started, using, proclaiming prayers to Baphomet and things like that. It's just nuts, some of the stuff he was involved in. Heck, he produced theater plays and things like that that was performed in London at the old Tivoli Theater. He got into Moscow because of that. He was able to get inside Russia because of these plays and productions that he was part of. So under different guises of his life, he was able to get into some of the most locked down places on the planet. China, Russia. I mean, yeah, that would have been in the heyday of the Soviet Russia. Right after the fall of the Romanovs, and that's when they really started. Them talking about him being involved in British intelligence, being able to move into these places. When you look at these places that he went, it really makes more sense that he was involved with British intelligence. The dude spent time in Moscow, in China, dealt with with Nazi Germany, but all of it at the same time, he was still maintaining his British citizenship and would come back home. So he was able to move back and forth easily, giving him the opportunity to pass information back to the British intelligence with no one even questioning his motives. Just insane stuff. And then you look at the more esoteric background of it, and again, if you believe a quarter of it, he had to be some sort of shaman or holy man in these orders, because he was involved in just so much of this lore. In fact, it's hard to trace the origin of anything to do with the occult in the United States without his name popping up in it somewhere.
Yeah, somebody asked, "What's that noise in the background?" It's my fan. Sorry. And my pit bull. I got a pit bull with me, so I apologize.
Yeah, I have to keep my door shut to my writing room to keep the dog out. I've got a pit bull, and he'd be in my lap if he could.
That's what he's trying to do right now.
Greg Price says Crowley is a nexus point on the string board of conspiracies. Yeah. You can trace the origin of a lot of crap back to Crowley. I mean, like we were talking about how modern Wicca basically draws directly from Crowley. Meg Mills says, "I love pitties." Me too.
Thank you.
Our dog Harley is he's the family goofball.
That's mine.
He's a great pup, and I always heard so much about pit bulls that growing up, like, oh, they're such mean dogs, and then we got him, and he's just like completely the opposite. He's just a huge goofball and likes nothing better than to be in your lap and getting his neck scratched.
Well, they're called nanny dogs back in the 30s. They would leave the dog alone with the kids. They would watch the kids. They're a great family dog.
Mm-hmm. Harley's been an awesome. Just trying to catch up here. Oh,
What you say?
Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't anything to do with the conversation. I always get caught up when people are talking back and forth. I'm like, okay, is this part of it? Part of it?
Yeah, so talking about zip lining.
About
yeah, I done it.
I would probably do zip lining. I mean, that's you're even though it's heights, you're actually like in a harness.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's high unprotected heights that get me, like where you don't have anything to hang on to.
I was actually at the one. I actually did it where she said it is in Gatlinburg. We did it there.
Keith Van Rensselaer says Crowley also had an influence on H.P. Lovecraft. Doesn't surprise me. I'm sure Crowley and Anton LaVey both did. Sorry, I got caught up in the pit bull discussion again.
No, I seen that too. I was looking at. See what we started? We're talking about animals. Everybody's like, they're going crazy now. Oh well.
Hey man, embrace the topic.
That's it.
We can't stay on topic for more than an hour.
I learned that listening to you guys, and then I get wrapped up into it too.
We do it all the time.
I know.
Tony Harris says Wicca founder Gerald Gardner held an OTO charter, which Crowley was the head of the OTO of the UK. Yeah. Again, you trace all of that right back to Crowley. Gerald Gardner and Raymond Buckland were huge in the creation of modern Wicca.
Hmm.
John Abraham says, "Will you do a discussion on Rasputin?" Yeah, we could easily do a show on Rasputin. We could talk about him right now to an extent if you want. But Rasputin was a very much like Crowley. I mean, he was one of those weird esoteric religious figures that some people believe he had healing powers. Wound up having an affair with the Tsarina of Russia, and it's very possible that his influence over the Tsar and Tsarina is what brought about the fall of the Romanovs. Is because of him why they decided to put down the royal family and go communist. So Rasputin might have been the catalyst for creating Soviet Russia. What do they call that? They had a name for it the night the Romanovs were killed, and I can't remember what it was. But Rasputin, talk about somebody that was like almost a holy level,
Right.
almost impossible to kill. When they decided they were going to kill Rasputin, they gave him like these cakes that had been poisoned, and the poison was plenty enough to kill just about anybody. Well, he just scarfed the cakes down and ate them, and they were like, "Hey, he's not dying.
Yeah, what's going on?
What do we do now?"
Yeah.
Hey, there's Doc.
There he is.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, brother.
Made it home, I see.
Whew, by the grace of God, man, because those people were trying to kill me out there.
Well, glad you joined us, brother.
Thank you, brother. Good to be here.
We were talking about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, and here just recently we were talking a little bit about Rasputin. I was talking about how weird Rasputin's death was. They poisoned the guy and gave him poison cakes, and he just ate them. And they were kind of like, "Hey, why isn't he dying?" And he just kept talking. So then they gave him, I think they also poisoned him in the alcohol they gave him to him, and he just chugged that down. Then they shot him, and that didn't kill him. So they stabbed him multiple times. And when that didn't kill him, they rolled him up in a carpet and threw his ass in the Volga. And when they did the autopsy on him, when they dug him out of the water, he had water in his lungs, which means after all of that shit, that bastard was still alive when they chucked him in the river.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean,
that dude didn't want to die.
That whole situation in there. Hey, everybody. That whole situation with that whole, Tsar Nicholas and everything, and Rasputin. He was. They're saying because I talked to one of my priests when I was in the Greek Orthodox Church, and he was Russian Orthodox, and he was like, "Yeah," he said, "There's rumors of that dude having dealings with the devil." So, being in the black arts,
John Abraham says some say he was a vampire. Again, when you're talking about Aleister Crowley and or Rasputin, nothing really shocks me. No. I mean, nothing really seems outside of the realm of possibility with either of those guys, because they both seem to just to have this almost otherworldly influence about them. And look how far the teachings and the tendrils that Rasputin was involved in reached throughout Russia. And the same thing with Crowley. Crowley, he had things he did. He had fingers in pies that wound up having far-reaching effects all over the planet. Modern Wicca is traced back to him. A lot of modern occult practices trace back to him. The dude was possibly an operative for the British intelligence. I mean, the dude was just involved in so much stuff. And when you look at it, I hadn't really thought about it before, but when you look at him and Rasputin, there are a lot of really weird parallels between the two.
Yeah. But I don't think Ozzy wrote a song about Rasputin, though. So
pretty sure he didn't.
Mr.
Crowley.
That's a great song.
It is a great song.
Got to hear him sing that live. That was kind of rad. But I think there's a lot of similarities, a lot of different theories out there with Crowley. I mean, I remember hearing people talk about him when I was a kid, in the Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
There's even this guy who was a Reformed Satanist that came to our church and taught one time when I was a kid, and he was talking about Crowley and the black arts and black magic and selling his soul to the devil and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Lene Perkins had a comment
Doc,
for
you
you.
never told us.
Say again?
The comment over there that he was going to say, you never told us about your business over in with Grey Eagle.
Oh yeah. That's the little venture.
I got that.
Yeah, me and Greg were talking about. Yeah, I finished that one up last night, DA. So that was good. That was good.
Yeah,
Glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. Me too. It was pretty good. My uncle's like, he's talking about Doc, isn't he, in the chopper? I'm like, yeah, that's who he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned in the first book in Apex Predator Wolf Moon, when Grey Eagle first called Doc, he mentioned that he'd known him since the military.
Yep.
That's kind of the origin story.
Yeah, that was the funny.
Well, the first part of the origin is actually in the second Apex Predator book, when he talks about the firefight in Afghanistan where Doc patched him up the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's been we've had a long history, I guess. So,
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. Northwoods, I did get the email, man. I have been so busy. I got 20 emails flagged, and I was supposed to be gone till tomorrow, but I got back tonight. This is like day 16 out of 17, so I'm taking the next couple of days off, but I'll get to it the next couple of days, I promise.
don't blame me, man. Don't blame you.
Tony Harris says Crowley has a crazed, dry British sense of humor. If someone was stupid enough to believe the stuff they said about him, he was just cantankerous enough to go along with it. But the thing is he did so much of that stuff. We don't know what was true and what wasn't. What part of that was him just working for British intelligence, and what part of it was him legit being some crazy occultist?
Right. Because, I mean, the stories that he told, everything he said might have been so outlandish, they were just saying, this guy's off his rocker. He's got to be making this up,
Right. That's why I asked DA, was there any documentation on any of the, statement missions if he ever did anything? And there's nothing out there.
Well, there's nothing to confirm from the British intelligence point of view. Just a lot of speculation. Mm-hmm. And at one point, the British was like, "Yeah, he worked for us," but then that pretty much just dropped it at that.
Right.
Yeah.
But as far as his dabblings into the dark arts and into the occult, that's pretty well documented. He did that.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
yeah.
traveled the world and learning more about the occult. Lene Perkins says the Dog Soldier book was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I am really glad you liked that. Oh, John Abraham says we need a book about Pocket Doc and Grey Eagle.
That'd be funny. That's funny.
Well, Doc does appear in quite a few of them. In fact, we have a special. I wish Josh was still here. That's not the one that I needed.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find the image. So I know Josh sent it to me.
Yeah, I seen it. I'm not going to give it away. I'll let you do it. It was pretty cool.
I've got to find the pictures.
Yeah, because you sent it to me the other day.
Yeah. Let me find yours real quick, because it'll probably be easier to find.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
How's the weather up there, Doc?
Right now it's -2.
Oof.
Yeah, I was telling DA it was 80, 85, 86 here today.
Yeah, I wish. When I left up in the mountains, it was clearing up, but there's another front moving through. So I saw a window, and I shagged because the interstate was clear tonight. I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow, so I just went ahead and broke camp and headed on down.
Well, compared to you, Doc, we're a balmy 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I got here, Angie builds fires, but she's like, "You gonna build a fire?" I was like, "Yes, ma'am. I'll build you a fire."
Jonathan Rossignol says Crowley died in poverty despite all his exploits. Yeah, he he was one of those guys that didn't plan for a retirement. He pretty much, if he had it, he blew it.
Yeah. Yeah. Lene had a good question too in there. Lene Perkins had a great question about did he have influence? Yeah, influence of bands like the Eagles.
Yeah, he influenced the music of a lot of people, not just Ozzy Osbourne. In fact, he's on the album cover of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. He's on the album cover, even though the Beatles later tried to deny it. But if you look at it, it's pretty obviously him.
Oh, but yeah, that's kind of
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the picture. For those of you who are weren't wondering what I meant by the shirt reference, we have a T-shirt available on the merch store. merchstore.daroberts.net, referencing Doc's famous line from Codename Wild Hunt, Curse of the Wendigo.
I can't. That's awesome.
Yeah, I am going to order a couple of those.
I may or may not have ordered me one, Angie one, a coffee mug, a couple of stickers. Just saying.
I remember the night I wrote that line. I got done with that scene, and I sent it to Doc, and like 20 minutes later, I get a phone call, and he can't even talk. He's laughing. He's like that. He's even Angie says that sounds just like me.
Yeah, and you said, and the funny thing was, you was like, yeah, and when I was writing it in your accent.
Yeah. I can just hear it in your accent. Like, yeah, that sounds like something he'd say.
Oh, mercy.
No, even though even in the book, was it Dog Soldier, when you made the comment and he asked you how you were doing, and you took that phrase from Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, Doc, how's it going? Doc, how the hell are you?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
Right. And my uncle, I was telling DA, he's a former PJ back in Vietnam. He loves Tom Clancy. That's all he reads. And I got him into, reading DA. He about busted a stitch when he was listening to the Audible. And he was like, where does he get this stuff from? I'm like, that's just him, man. I mean, that's,
man, I know.
Well, Doc's been on the journey with me since book 1.
Yeah, man.
We started talking about combat medicine right after I released the first Ragnarok book back in 2012, and I'm like, well, let me pick your brain. I'm fixing to cause some mayhem here, and I need to know how to treat it. And he's like, well, I am your guy.
Yeah, I'm your Huckleberry. So, yeah, that was we have been we've been doing that stuff for a minute now, and that's Today I just got back I was teaching a class up at a police department up in the mountains. So that was kind of fun.
That would have been cool.
It was a good time. Good time.
Yeah.
I still got to get out there so we can go up to that camp is where the Wendigo sightings were at.
Dude, one of the guys in class, I was telling him about the podcast and everything because he was interested in Bigfoot and everything like that, the other cryptids. And he said, do you know they have a Bigfoot museum, like a small one there in Bailey, Colorado? And that's up close to Roosevelt National Forest and everything where there have been some sightings. So he said, yeah, you ought to go check it out. It's tiny, but it's interesting. So there's a guy up there who's dedicated his life. I want to look into that more and I'll let you know. We could talk to him maybe.
Heck yeah. I would love to do that.
That might be a good lead. Might be a good lead in for a show for, Colorado sightings or something like that.
Heck yeah.
So,
That would be good.
Yeah. Be kind of cool. Yeah.
Had a question here. Oh, yeah, right here. Crystal Laws says, is there an order one should read DA's books in? I heard about them through Cam Buckner. I'm posting a link right now in the chat, and that links to my website where the timeline is actually officially posted. So you can look at that timeline, and as new books come out, we'll update the timeline. Mm-hmm. And that has everything up to the Ragnarok books. We're still kind of updating it, but the Ragnarok books, you just read those in order.
Yeah, those are great, and it was so cool to watch the characters evolve in those books, just like they have in the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, the Wild Hunt, all those books. It's been really, really cool to watch them evolve and grow.
Well, you had a hand in the evolution too.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool, man. Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I love seeing the character development. Werewolf was like, that was in the cabin, wasn't it? I was like, yeah, Yeah, that's in the cabin. I was trying to help that guy. I just wanted to get out of there. He busted up my snowmobile. Damn Wendigo. Can't have nice things from the damn Wendigos.
That's right.
Nerve-wracking sons of bitches. It's like playing cards with my brother's kids or something.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, those of you who have not read the Ragnarok series or anything like that, highly recommend that. That's where, he started off with the zombie horror, and then then there's so many books you've written, man, and then the Lakeview Man and the Wild Hunt, all those guys. Oh, DA, did you get that email from John? Did you finally get one from him?
I don't know. Some people have trouble contacting my DA Roberts email. We've noticed it here on the show, but I have not gotten an email from the guy.
Yeah, because he said
I checked my spam folders. I haven't seen anything from him.
That's been months ago, man. That's been months ago that you and I first talked about that, and he contacted me. He said, I sent him one. He said, I'll send him another one, and that was last week. So I don't know. You may have to just call him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I might have to. Because apparently email tag's not working.
Yeah, it ain't working too good.
There's a lot of folks wanting one of those patches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, we want to get the full size rockers over them too, just like the team wears.
Absolutely.
So, John Abraham, that's the place in Colorado. Are you talking about Bailey, John? Up there in Bailey Deckers area along Highway 285 going towards Fairplay. Is that where you're talking about?
71 Vega Man says, are your books based on any actual events, or are they all fictional? Well, I've been investigating cryptids since the late 70s. Even as a kid, I was really digging into it, but I've really kind of gotten more serious about the research as I got older. But I've collected hundreds of accounts over the years of people telling me stories about Bigfoot and Dogman and how these creatures behaved and how they felt when they had the experience. And I've taken these behaviors from actual accounts, and I've used a lot of that information in creating the books. So I've tried to make the behaviors of the creatures as consistent as I possibly could. And at the same time, like the medical information, like I'll contact Doc or my buddy Steve, who's the Saturday night host, is a nurse. I'll talk to one of the two of them to get my medical information right. If it's battlefield medicine, Doc's always my go-to guy. But I always ask a lot of questions because I want to make sure the details of the books are as realistic as possible. Because when you have a foundation of logical, believable facts, then your bigger story about the monsters has that realistic feel to balance on, and it creates a much bigger suspension of disbelief. People are really more willing to be invested in a fictional story when all of the real world details are right. I know, for example, nothing will kill my enjoyment of a book more than watching somebody make a mistake that they could have Googled and found out that they were absolutely wrong. If somebody may say something like they flicked off the safety on their Glock, I'm like, oh, this guy doesn't know shit.
Exactly.
Or they refer to a magazine as a clip. That's another one that'll lose me pretty fast.
Yeah, that annoys me when people say that. Like it's not a clip.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about the effort you put into it, man, and other authors that I read as well, the accuracy, and I look for that kind of stuff because I'm a technical guy, whether it's medicine or firearms or any other kind of technical stuff. It makes it a lot more believable and enjoyable read, and you don't, because if you read something inaccurate like that, you just check out,
right.
and then the interest is gone, so. Yeah, and I like the way like you said, you have you've seen these, you've got these accounts, and you kind of base your writing on those accounts to make them as accurate as possible. So, pretty cool stuff.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
No worries, man. No worries.
AJ Congdon says, hey, DA, any news on a box set of Ragnarok? I contacted my Amazon rep, and they don't do boxed sets, so I would have to go to an outside source to try to figure out how to get a box set done. So at the moment, no, there's really nothing I know that I'm able to do a box set. However, I can tell you when you get the print editions of the Ragnarok books, when you have them all on the shelf, the spines all make one image. So when you put all 10 of the books next to each other, you'll see one consistent image across all 10 spines. But I am still looking into the box set. It's probably going to be something I'm going to have the boxes made separately and do a made to order kind of thing. But that's a little ways down the road before I'll be able to afford to do that. Bill Sloan says, I've read the first 5 of the Ragnarok series. I had the last 5 delivered today. Awesome. Thank you, sir. There was a comment about there we go. I think this was for you, Doc. Tony Harris says buttload of Sasquatch sightings around Pagosa Springs, Colorado.
Yeah, that's
like a place we need to go.
Yeah, that's out on the way to Durango, down towards the Four Corners area, and yeah, that's down in the I think the San Juan mountain range down there. So that'd be pretty cool.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's like from here, DA. It's about maybe about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. Not too bad.
It's not bad.
It's a pretty drive though, real pretty drive.
I definitely enjoy that. I like driving through the mountains. Crystal Law says, I once saw Bigfoot back in '79 in the Ocala National Forest. I'd love to hear the story. If you want to tell us a story, I'd love to hear it. You can email me at daroberts@daroberts.net or contact me through social media, but I would love to hear the story.
There's a lot of sightings out in Ocala National Forest. Tons of sightings.
Now, Anthony, is that Sasquatch, or is that what they call the skunk ape out there, or both?
It's both, because there's not that much lands up here. So the more south you go, is the more, I guess, you get more of the wetlands. Like when I lived in Palm Beach, it was more swampy. Up here, it's more pine forests, and you get some cypress bottoms, but not that much. Not that much, right, man. But there's a lot of sightings up here, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I want to get down there and do some hunting myself. 71 Vega Man says, more Dogman, please. Well, I'm going to be, I'm endeavoring to fulfill that request. I'm working on Apex Predator 5 right now, Apex Predator Dark Moon. It's going to be set, the book is set in the LBL, Land Between the Lakes area, and it will definitely whet your appetite for Dogman. Northwood says, I try to be as accurate as I can with the stories I write when it comes to the technical stuff. I'm right there with you, man. I believe that if you can't get the little details right, nobody's going to believe the big details.
That's right. Yeah. And like I said, they'll just check out.
Mm-hmm. Tony Harris says, as a kid, I was like the Lance Kerwin character in Salem's Lot. As a result, that movie scared the living crap out of me. I always said that I did not ever want to do a vampire story, and I wound up doing a couple stories that involve vampires. I was researching areas for books, and I drove down to a little bitty town here in Missouri called Rockaway Beach, and it is a little bitty town right on the shores of Lake Taneycomo. And when we were driving through this little town, my wife goes, God, doesn't this place remind you of Salem's Lot? I'm like, well, shit, now there's got to be a vampire in this story. Yeah. And that's how Apex Predator Hunter's Moon came about. Horned Moon. Two Thinking says, DA, did you come up with the Hotometaneo, or are they based on real events? Yes, there were Native American warriors, predominantly among the Cheyenne and the Lakota, because they were allies. The Hotometaneo were called dog soldiers, and that's where the title, the short story Dog Soldier, came from. The dog soldiers fought back to the last man against the cavalry expansion into native lands, and they were believed to be mystically empowered, and it was rumored that they could change to a wolf, a dog, or any other animal they wanted to turn into, but primarily a wolf or a dog, and then back. And I took that legend, and that's where Will Gray Eagle and all of the others came from. Was me building on that legend. Bizzle says, that'd be awesome. Wild Hunt with pictures. Well, we might be able to do something along those lines.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Baki says, will you ever try and turn your books into graphic novels? That's what that other comment was from. I've actually reached out to a couple of people, comic book artists, and I'm exploring some options on that. If we do any of the series, we'll probably start out with the Ragnarok Rising series, because graphic novels involving zombies are generally pretty popular. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably start with those and see how they sell, and then move into the other series as well. Trying to see if I had any more questions. Good night. Lenita says she's heading to bed. Good night, Lenita.
Night, Lenita.
Night, hon.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way Apex Predator Dark Moon is going. I think it's going to throw some people for a loop. I love being able to throw in twists and turns that people don't see coming. And I'm hoping this one will be no different. I've sent it to a couple of my alpha readers already, and they're like, "Man, this is getting interesting pretty quick." So I'm hoping I'll be able to continue that. Doc, if you're bored, I'll send it to you.
Send it on, man. Send it on.
I'll send it to you here in just a minute.
Yeah, I'll take a peek at it. Always down for a good read.
Well, it's not huge yet. I mean, I'm not close to finishing it, but I'm gonna be trying hard to wrap up the manuscript in the next week or two.
Yeah.
John Doe made a good comment. We were just talking about that.
Yep.
Because most of the book series sounds like they'd fit right in as a Netflix show. I would love that. If anybody's got any contacts with Netflix, HBO, or Amazon Prime, I would be more than happy to talk to them. I would love to see the books made into a series. Especially if they did it right. I mean, I've read the Jack Reacher books, and when they made movies with Tom Cruise, I was like, yeah, he's in no way, shape, or form even remotely close to Jack Reacher in the books. But the new Jack Reacher TV series, that guy is pretty much dead on.
That guy's dead on. I mean, not that Tom Cruise didn't do a good job.
He did do a good job. But when you think Jack Reacher, Tom Cruise is not the first person you think.
He was the physical description was 100% off. And Angie and I have been watching the Reacher series, and there's some technical inaccuracies in there, but overall, it's been very well done.
Mondoc 40 in Research says, I just finished book 7 of your Ragnarok series. There was a twist with a new limited edition zombies. I try to keep it mixed up. I try to add in new types of zombies as you go along. And I've had the one that the most people have commented on are the ones I referred to as the stalkers. Those are the ones that freak most people out.
Yeah, I agree.
Tammy Lamb says, what audiobooks do you have, DA? Right now I have book 1 of The Lakeview Man out. I have a book I co-authored with Kat Dahman called Cold Hunger. I have the first book of my sci-fi series, which just came out, narrated by Sal Passos, Lost Legion, Perdition's Flames. It's now available. Book 1 of the Codename Wild Hunt series is available, narrated by Cam Buckner. And book 1 of the Lakeview Man series, narrated by Eli Watson from Small Town Monsters.
I think I've listened to 2 of them so far. The other 2 are queued up for my next road trip.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I do.
John Abraham says, will the new audio book be a gut punch like Blanc Road? Man, that had me. Well, it depends on which book. Some of the books are a 1-2 combo like that, but I try to throw in enough plot twists and changes that I catch people by surprise, and it takes some doing, because sometimes people will like, especially my alpha readers, they'll start reading a book and they go, I know where this is going, and then I have to figure out a way to make sure it doesn't go there, just to throw them off. So my alphas have a direct influence on how twisted the books get sometimes, because I'm like, well, if they figured it out, other people will figure it out, and I don't want to be predictable. Bizzle A says, no joke, twists and turns. The latest Lakeview Man was crazy. Thank you, sir. Much appreciate that. Lene Perkins says the last Lakeview Man had so many twists and turns. I swear I got whiplash. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Werewolf 5674 says my favorites are Lakeview Man, Apex, Wild Hunt, and Night Stalker. Nightmare Hunter? Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. Kolchak was the Night Stalker. That's the hat. Brian Merrick's going to bed. Good night, man. 71 Vega Man says someone needs to do a TV documentary on DM to let folks know about the phenomenon with a panel of heavy hitters in the field. Rumor has it that something like that may be in the works. I don't have a whole lot of details on it yet, but there's a rumor going around that someone is working on something like that.
That would be interesting.
Sam Mountain says, would love it if Cam did the audio for all of your books. Cam's going to be doing a lot of them. He's going to do all of the Codename Wild Hunts. He's taking over. He's doing the Apex Predator books, and he's probably going to be doing a good chunk of the Ragnarok books. Cam's wanting to do a lot of those audio books, and he does a great job. I'm still looking at the possibilities for Lakeview Man. Sal Passos has got the sci-fis wrapped up, and then, of course, I'll be looking when I get the first fantasy novel done. I'll be looking for somebody to handle that series as well. So I've got a lot of potentialities coming up in the future on that. Two Thinking says Blunk Road was the first book ever that I wish I had more fluff on it just to be able to catch my breath. That's kind of a double-edged sword. Some people like the extra details, and then some people hate it. Some people just want the action sequences to flow. So I try to establish as much of a balance with that as I can. There will be more short stories like the Codename Wild Hunt, Operation Lily, and other short stories that has Dog Soldier in it. There'll be more compilations like that coming out that are kind of behind-the-scenes short stories based on the other series. So I'd be looking forward to more of those. That's definitely in the works. John Abraham says, not to spoil anything, but one death in Blunk Road hit hard. There were several deaths in Blunk Road.
Yeah.
Werewolf 5674 says, suggestion, add some maps to the books. Well, that's the thing with all of the Codename Wild Hunt books and everything, and all the Apex Predator and Lakeview Man. I could just put a link to the actual locations, and you could look at them in Google Maps. They're all real places.
Mm-hmm.
They are all very real places. If you Google places like in Lakeview Man 3, if you Google Galena, Missouri, or Blunk Road, Galena, Missouri, it will literally take you right to it on Google Maps. For those of you who are members of this channel, members here on the YouTube channel, or part of the Patreon community, I just recorded a video down at Blunk Road, and it's posted exclusive for the channel members and YouTube members. So if you guys are part of the Patreon or YouTube members, make sure you check those locations, because you'll have exclusive access to those videos. That video. Sam Melton says, rented a cabin at Broken Bow at the end of March just to see the area. Beautiful area down there. It really is. Crystal Law says, I love Cam. I could listen to him read a catch-up model. Cam's got such a great reading style. I love having him there. Sam Melton says, I've listened to Wild Hunt 3 times this week already. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. I love to hear that. Tony Harris says, in RE Dogman, I'm currently reading Real Wolfman, True Encounters in Modern America by Linda S. Godfrey. She knows a hell of a lot about Dogman. She's kind of an authority on it. So if she wrote it, I would definitely stand by it. Super nice lady. I would love to be able to get her on the show, but I understand she's a little busy at the moment. So hopefully at some time in the future, I'll be able to make that happen. Northwood Scripted says, DAE, have you a chance any watch of the series Grimm yet? Yeah, my wife and I binge watched Grimm. We've watched the whole thing. Grimm was a pretty good series. Don't everybody talk at once. I was catching my breath.
I know, man. I know.
71 Vega Man says Linda is the queen of the heavy hitters. Yes, she is. She's an awesome lady and really knows the subject.
Yeah, I wrote that book down. I think I'm gonna have to. Man, y'all gonna make me go broke buying all these damn books everybody recommends.
I just bought like 6 new thick books
on
cryptids that'll be here Friday. I can't wait to start digging into them.
Yeah,
it
gives me plenty of reading material. That's for sure.
Book out DA about Doc. It was it's called what was the name of that book I just out DA? About
now I'm drawing a blank.
Paramilitary.
I should have wrote that down. I'm completely forgetting about it.
Hold on, let me look it up.
Werewolf 5674 says Sal did a great job narrating that. Yeah, Sal's already started the second book in the series, which is Lost Legion: Blood and Honor. He's already started. I've listened to what he's gotten done so far, and it's going to be awesome. He did such a good job with the first one. I can't wait to hear the second one completed. Northwood says at the rate I'm going, I'll need to build some new bookshelves.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, brother. I'm right there with you.
Well, that's much appreciated, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all. I mean, to hear so many people that enjoy the books just really puts a big old grin on my face. Crystal Arredondo says, what books do you recommend on Dogmen? There are some good ones out there. I would have to look through my library to kind of pick out some of the better titles. Barton Nunnally did a good book called Inhumanoids. If you can get a hold of that book, it talks about not just Bigfoot, but it also talks about Dogman. That's a good one. There are a lot of good books out there. That's the one that comes right off the top of my head. If Naoma was here, she could rattle off a dozen of them because she collects those books. I tend to read them and pass them on, and like, here, read this book, and then forget who I loaned it to and not get it back. But there are a bunch of really good books on the subject. I will see what I can pull and maybe like do a blog post on some of the better books and see if I can't throw that up. If not, I'll try to have a list together by Saturday's show.
All right, Doc, that book was called Surprise, Kill, Vanish.
Yeah, that was the one.
Surprise, kill, vanish. All right.
It's all true events. A lot of it has to do with the SOG operators and paramilitary CIA operators.
Okay.
That did a lot of interviews with.
All right. Awesome. I like those kind of books. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You and me both. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah.
And they get into detail about Cuba.
Oh.
So.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to check that one out for sure. Yeah, I read a book way back a long time ago about Mac V SOG. I think it was John Plaster that wrote that book, Major Plaster. And then one of the guys I worked with when I was stationed at Fort Bragg at the gun shop, old dude named Joe Schmitz, and he carried a Browning High Power on his hip. That's all he carried, and he had it done out by Robar and everything, had it hard finished and everything. He was a member of Mac VSOG in Vietnam. He was one of the dudes that went to jump school at Fort Campbell back in the early 60s when they actually had two jump schools. They had one at Benning, one at Campbell, and he went to jump school at Fort Campbell. So that dude was you look at him, just nice old dude, you know. Mm-hmm. And man, but back in the day, he was harder than a freaking barrel of woodpecker lips.
Yeah. A lot of those guys are not even around anymore, man. There's so many and few of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, goodness.
John Abraham says Grey Eagle and Pocket Doc and Grandpa and Gideon spin-off books would rock. Just the history between them would be really good.
He's right. Probably
That
would.
Well, I am planning a Gideon solo project. That'll be
Man.
coming up later this year or maybe early next year. But as many people have asked about Grandfather and some of the other characters, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to at some point at least do
Yeah.
short stories on
Well,
some of these characters.
because I would, like you and I were talking about on another show, and even offline, the history between Grandfather and Gideon, that
Mhm.
would make for some really cool storylines, man.
Well, I already know right directly in my mind how they met. I mean, that's the story I've already got it firmly established in my head. I've just never written it down. So yeah, I can link their history from the Old West up to World War I, World War
Damn.
II, Korea.
Damn.
They've known
That'd be
each
cool.
other a long time.
That would be cool, man. That would be cool. Let me check that out.
Tammy Lamb says, spent a lot of my childhood at the LBL camping, Cuttawa Landing and Smith Bay and Hillman Ferry. LBL is an amazing area. In fact, again, that's where the new book, Apex Predator Dark Moon, is going to be set. But I spent about a week in LBL back in July and had some really cool experiences there. Really enjoyed it. Had a good time. I'm going back next month.
Mhm.
And just a couple weeks actually, and that's going to be a good time. But sometime this summer when things warm back up, I want to get back to LBL for at least a week, and then I want to get down to Brown Springs, Oklahoma, where there's been a lot of sightings. Of course, I want to get down to Taylor, Mississippi, where the famous Dogman incident known as the Siege of Lockett Ranch happened. There's a lot of areas with a lot of crazy cryptid activity that I'm planning on going to and filming.
Hey, Doc, guys, give me a minute. I got to get off of here. I'm just going to mute it real quick.
Okay, no problem.
Excuse me.
So, Doc, how was your trip?
Long, man. It was good because I got back like 1:30 in the morning, Monday morning from Arizona, slept for a few hours, got up and went up in the mountains, and then taught up there yesterday and today and drove back this evening. So my butt's dragging my tracks out right now. So I'm just glad to have a few days off. That's for sure, brother.
Well, you've earned it, brother.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Oh, dude. Let me see here. Toothaking. Yeah. Okay. Another one.
Cowboys 5 Rings says, are there any books recommended on the Jersey Devil? Nick Valente is more of an expert on the Jersey Devil than I am, but there are a lot of books that are really good resources. You can just go to Amazon and Google books on cryptids and find all kinds of different books that have information on Mothman and the Jersey Devil and many other types of cryptids. But that's one that I haven't really dug into too much. If I lived closer to Jersey and could get loose in the Pine Barrens, I'd probably be a lot more interested in it. But I've spent most of my research on Bigfoot and Dogman because they seem to be most commonly seen in my area. Christian Arredondo says, have there been other attacks in the LBL? There are stories that come out of there all the time. People have gone missing in there. Of course, a lot of them were probably just hikers that got lost, and that area is so thickly forested, it'd be pretty easy to get lost and not be found. But there are a lot of stories that come out of there in and around the area of LBL that have been officially reported by the local authorities as wild dog attacks. And having spent a week in northern LBL, I never saw any packs of wild dogs running around capable of taking down a hiker. I didn't see any dogs at all. So it leads me to question the veracity of some of these official stories about some of these attacks. There was a lady, an elderly lady that walked the same trail behind her house every day to keep it for exercise, and she was killed by wild dogs, even though there were no wild dog packs reported in the area. There's another case not too far from LBL where a 13-year-old kid was found in the woods across from his house, supposedly killed by wild dogs. So unless there's a lot of really nasty wild dogs roaming around the Kentucky wilderness, I'm thinking that a lot of these are being basically reported as unrelated, other types of things. But there are a lot of incidents that have been reported out of the LBL area. A lot of accounts coming from fishermen that have seen dogman along the shores of LBL. My favorite story out of the LBL area was just right across the lake from, I believe it was Demumbers Bay, right across the lake, about an old boy that woke up in the middle of the night and his dog was acting nuts. So he went downstairs thinking the dog wanted to go outside, even though he had a dog door for his dog to go in and out of. And when he went to his kitchen, there was a dog man halfway through his dog door trying to get into the house. And I guess, he opened fire and it ducked back out the door and took off. But a lot of dogman related stories that come in around Demumbers Bay and the Hotel California area. A lot of dogman stories coming out of there. Two Thinking says, DA, a book recommendation section would be awesome. Post for the blog. I will do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I will put together a list of good cryptid resource books that I refer to and books that I have in my library that I will put up as a blog entry. I will get to work on that this week. William Bedard says, dog-headed people are shown in history. Any facts and info on them regarding evolution, or did they just appear? I don't know the origin of dog-headed people because reports of them go way back. The condition known as cynocephaly, which is appearing to have the head of a dog, among humanoid type peoples were both reported by Marco Polo and Christopher Columbus during their travels. One of the Christian saints, Saint Michael, Saint Christopher, was called the dog-headed saint, and a lot of the Catholic depictions of him depict him as having the head of a dog. Yep. Of course, then you've got Anubis, and you've got the stories of werewolves that from around Europe. Then you've got the Viking stories of the Ulfhednar, the wolf-headed warriors that would go into battle that no blade or spear seemed to hurt. So you have these stories from around the world of these dog-headed people. So there's no real clear origin on where they might have come from, but even the Bible mentions people with the heads of animals like the lion of Judah. So there's references to creatures like this dating back to prehistory. So I'd say their origins are as old as our own. They were probably one of those offshoots that we beat back for dominance, and the ones that we have today are remnant populations that have learned over the years, much like Bigfoot, to stay away from humans because we're bad news. And in large numbers, we can be fatal.
Sorry, I had to go take care of some stuff outside.
Not a problem, sir.
Yeah, the dogs, I don't know, they cornered something in the backyard, so I don't know what it is.
Did you go out there and clear the backyard?
Yeah, I'm trying to, my other one's outside now. My male's in here with me now. My female's out there. So I might have to jump off. I might have to jump off in a minute to go grab her.
Okay. Well, if you need to, I totally get it, man. No worries. Mondoc 40 in research says, hey, are you thinking about doing a book on skinwalkers? Maybe contrast them and the dog soldiers? Yeah, skinwalkers will show up in a book, and it won't be too terribly distant in the future. 71 Vega Man says, anybody ever camp in LBL? That's where I'm going next month in a couple of weeks, is to a big camp out in LBL. There's going to be a lot of big names in the cryptid community are going to be at this camp out, and I will be shooting a lot of video there. So hopefully I'll have some good video to share with you guys.
Yeah, I wish I could get up there with you guys, man. Really,
it'd be a good time, man.
Mm-hmm.
Lene Perkins says, I camped at Wranglers with my horses. That's in southern LBL, isn't it? I believe that Wranglers is farther south. Hey, John Abraham says, Michigan has a lot of dogman sightings here. Michigan and Wisconsin are both pretty famous for sightings. And Linda Godfrey has written books about dogman in both areas, and they're both really good books. John Doe says, they do not make any evolutionary sense. Again, I don't know if I would call them paranormal. It's hard to say. We don't really have any information, and the simple thing is nobody is an expert on the field of dogman or Bigfoot. Nobody is an expert, and I don't care what kind of Finding Nothing show they have on television. there are no experts, and anybody that claims otherwise is trying to sell you something. There are no experts in this field, and all we have is theory. So everybody's personal theory on what Bigfoot or Dogman is just as valid as anyone else's, because we don't know. It's only when specimens have been identified and have been studied by science that we're actually going to be able to say, okay, this is what we know to be fact. This is what the creature is. So at this point, it could be paranormal, it could be supernatural, it could be a flesh and blood creature. We don't know. But for me being my background in law enforcement, I tend to side with physical evidence. And my personal belief is I believe they're flesh and blood creatures.
Yeah, I feel the same as you, DA. It's like when I'm teaching my classes, people ask, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What about this? And I'm like, well, the studies show this, because that scientific data, I consider myself a scientist. I've been in the medical field for 30 years. And so I'm heavy on the science, because if it's there, there's that data is, like blood belongs in the body. The more blood you have in your body, the greater chance you have of living, and that's a scientifically irrefutable fact. So there's a lot of data out there, and like you said, if somebody says they're an expert, I think they're blowing sunshine up your skirt. So it's something that there's data, and I'm hard on data. If there's good data, then I'm all about it.
Tony Harris has a good point. I read about this book. I haven't read the book yet. I'm gonna order it. It says Richard Kaczynski's Per Durabo, The Life of Aleister Crowley, is pretty much considered absolutely the biography on Crowley. That would be a good one to read. Sam Milton says in the 5th century BC, the Greek physician I can't pronounce it. Ctesias, in his Indica, wrote a detailed report of the existence of cynocephali in India. There we go. There's another historical reference. And I have heard of the of cynocephali type creatures in India before. A lot of reports of tribes of dog-headed creatures living up in the mountains, and some of the natives tell people don't go there even today. 71 Vega Man says the berserkers dressed in wolf hides, but there are some versions of the stories that said that with the help of Gothi, they were able to actually transform into wolves. The Ulfhednar were true berserkers. It could have simply been something along the lines of they drank a certain herbal potion that put them into a frenzy. Maybe they were able to work themselves up into this berserk form and just wore the pelts of wolves. But there are some versions of the story that say, much like the Native American dog soldiers, they were able to shift back. Again, I would probably lean more toward they wore wolf pelts, but it's hard to say. I mean, it could be any number of weird explanations, especially when dealing with stuff that actual direct historical records have been lost. Linda Perkins says, I can't help but wonder if the cryptids are remnants of different ancient tribes of humanoids. That's another distinct possibility. I would not argue that. Werewolf 5674 says, grandfather and the gunny fighting over making coffee. Gunny's recipe I will flat out give you if anybody wants to make Gunny's coffee. Gunny's coffee is pretty simple. It's about 6 scoops, like heaping scoops of coffee, put into the filter, throw in a pinch of salt, and about 3 or 4 capfuls of bourbon. Probably Jack Daniels, because Gunny was a Jack Daniels guy. But pour the bourbon onto the coffee grounds and let it dry before you make the coffee, and it will give your coffee a really odd flavor. I had a sergeant in the Army that told me that secret, so I attributed it to the Gunny.
That's interesting.
Northwood Cryptids says, hopefully your dogs haven't found a skunk or a porcupine.
Yeah, I was thinking the skunk thing too.
Yeah, we don't have porcupines in over here, but skunks we do have. Yes.
John Doe says Sasquatch would likely have been susceptible to the horrific plagues that wiped out a good 90% of the inhabitants of North and South America. It's likely they would. If they're near human hominids, they're probably susceptible to the same diseases we are. Tony Harris says, Perdurabo was Crowley's magical name for the first order he belonged to, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. That's awesome. Crystal Laws says she's heading for bed. Says, got to hit the rack. Thanks for everything, DA. You're a writing machine. I'll send you an email, RA, my skunk ape experience. Good night. I'm looking forward to hearing your skunk ape experience. That'd be awesome. And I hope you have a great night. Thank you for being here. John Doe says such a thing would explain their seemingly incredibly low numbers and scattered nature, followed by gradual then rapid recovery. Exactly. For the longest time, it was extremely rare that people reported a Bigfoot encounter, but it seems like both Bigfoot and Dogman sightings have been on the rise in the last decade. And that's not just in the number of reported cases. That's in the people that have coming forward with older cases. People that report stuff that happened to them back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of those are coming forward that never came forward before. But modern sightings seem to be on an uptick. And I don't know if that's because we're encroaching more into their habitat, or something that I find more terrifying, if they're losing their fear of us.
That's a good theory too.
If creatures like Bigfoot and Dogman lose their fear of reprisal from humanoids, guess who's going to get knocked off that top rung of the food chain?
Yeah, that is it.
Meg wants to know your dog's names there, Anthony.
Boss and Mia. They're both pits.
Mondoc40 and research says the Elfinar. Sorry, I didn't know. It's the Ulfhednar. 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 He says, I don't know how it's spelled. Is that what Wiley is in the saga? No, Wiley is what's called the Einherjar, the chosen of Odin. Mondoc asked me for the recipe for Gunny's coffee the other day on the Discord chat. He says Gunny's coffee is awesome. I wouldn't steer you wrong, man. It's good coffee. I've had it many times myself. Lene Perkins says, ooh, that sounds like the coffee that'll dare you to drink it. Yeah, we had a guy a buddy of mine, good friend of mine, he passed away last year. Was an officer I worked with when I was a corrections officer. His name was Andy Hammer. He was killed by a guy that was texting and not paying attention, pulled right out in front of his motorcycle and killed him. But Andy was a good man. I learned a hell of a lot about being an officer from Andy. But Andy made the strongest coffee I've ever drank. It looked like motor oil. The coffee I talk about in the Ragnarok Rising books, in the first couple of books, where they referred to it as booking sludge, that was Andy's coffee. You didn't drink it so much as it marched down your throat under its own power, punching you in the tonsils on the way by.
On that note, DA, I had the cops cracking up because they brought some donuts. And I said, ooh, vegetables. And they all started dying laughing, man.
Yep, got veggies, Ram. Vegetables.
Vegetables.
Oh, I've already had that one. Tony Harris says, I'll be going to the LBL meetup too. Awesome. Hopefully I'll see you there. Cowboys 5 says, I wonder if Bigfoots have the big C. If they're susceptible to the same diseases we are, I don't see why they wouldn't. It's been demonstrated that dogs can get it. So if dogs can get it, why can't other animal species? Tony Harris says, look up chimeras, R.E. Dogman. Funny you should bring up chimeras, because some of the newest versions of the federal hunting legislation actually bring up chimeras when they start talking about near human hybrids in regards to hunting. That's kind of terrifying. That just falls into line with what I've been saying about how the government has been slowly going, oh yeah, UFOs exist, and been slowly releasing stuff. They're little by little releasing more and more of this kind of information. And one day we're just going to look up and it's all going to be laid out. And they're going to, oh yeah, we've been telling you guys for years these things exist. So it would not surprise me that the government is little by little started releasing information. I know for a fact that the Department of Natural Resources from the state of Ohio, they released a series of Bigfoot videos, like how, what to do in the event of a Bigfoot encounter and how to survive one. And when I first heard that they'd released the videos, I thought they were going to be tongue in cheek and goofy, and they're not. They're done as serious, straightforward videos. So if you ever get a chance to go to the Ohio DNR website, look for those videos because they're there. Or you can look up on YouTube, just put in Ohio Bigfoot videos and they'll pop right up.
That's interesting.
John Doe says, I was referring to the cynocephaly not making much sense. It makes as much sense as anything else. I mean, I don't know that we can rule it out. What's the old phrase? There's stranger things in this universe than will explain in your science ratio. Quoting Shakespeare or misquoting, one of the two. But there's so many references to them from differing parts of the world over the centuries. I would not be quick to dismiss it. I would, it's a lot of, same thing with a lot of like Native American lore. I would never just be the guy that go, oh no, that couldn't happen because it's not been proven in our science. Well, there were things that the Native Americans knew for a long time, long before they were accepted by our science. Like for example, drinking foxglove tea was a treatment for heart problems. And that was used by the Native Americans and by hedge witches and herbalists, and until it wasn't back in the 50s, Doc, that they realized they could create digitalis from foxglove, and that's a medication they use for hearts for treating heart problems.
Yep.
So the Native Americans knew about that for a long time, and there are other remedies that they've known about that modern science has eventually adopted. Mondoc 40 in research says, since I honor the old ways and don't wash the inside of my mugs, Gunny's coffee had a taste on my next regular cup.
Heck yeah.
I'm that way with my coffee pot. I mean, I've got a percolator and then I've got a camp coffee pot. Once you've got those seasoned, do not ever wash them out with soap and water. You can take a paper towel and wipe out schmutz that's left behind, but don't ever wash them out with soap and water once you've got them seasoned properly.
Yeah,
we had like cast iron. You'll ruin it.
We had a new troop show up one time, and they were trying to be helpful, and they went in the little coffee or the break room and washed up all the mugs, and they washed our first sergeant's mug.
Oh,
that mug had probably not been like scrubbed, and since Christ was a corporal, and that he went off. He was not happy about that, so he did a little wall to wall counseling with that guy. So
imagine the ass chewing was legendary.
Yeah, it was pretty epic, man.
Comes with the corollary: don't touch my effing mug, ever.
Exactly.
John Doe says, we have repeated examples of quadrupeds shifting to bipeds after all. Very much so. A lot of the dogman encounters that I've collected over the years talk about the first encounter with the dogman. It's on all fours and it just looks like a large wolf. And then they hear a popping sound as it stands up and suddenly it has hands. And that's another theory I'll get into on another show. We're going to do an origins of the dogman show here in the very near future. I'm going to get some people I know in the dogman community like Nick Valente and possibly Jody Cook on, and we'll talk about that at length, about the different types of dogman and about possibly origins and locations and places things along those lines. So I definitely want to get into the dogman story in a lot more detail.
Yeah, I've never seen one. I don't know if we have that many sightings up here with them, but
dogmen are of all the cryptids, dogmen are the ones that are the most dangerous. Them and of course, the snowmobile loving Wendigo. 71 Vega Man says, saw a story on a guy who shot a dogman with a 44 and it basically did nothing. I felt and still think it's flesh and blood, but if the story is true, the door is open further. I don't know. I would agree, but the thing is, it's much like with a Bigfoot creature or even a mountain gorilla, or heck, if you want to talk about deer species, look at the moose. You don't want to hunt something like that without the right equipment.
ballistics
44
is a
Magnum
big
handgun
thing.
is a powerful handgun, but you're talking about a tremendous amount of bone and muscle to penetrate. And if you're using a hollow point and a Magnum, they tend to blow the load on their power right in the opening area. So it'll do a nasty wound, but it doesn't necessarily penetrate all the way into the vital muscles. When dealing with Dogman and Bigfoot, we're talking creatures that are 7, 8, 9 feet tall. In Bigfoot's case, weighing in excess of 1,000 pounds. I wouldn't trust a small caliber rifle to do anything more than piss it off.
No.
Big bore caliber.
Yeah, I got a 338 Lapua Magnum with some 300 grain CNARs. I think might do the trick.
There was it Bear Creek ammo. They have those penetrators for the for grizzly bear.
There's a Wissa. Well, hey, Wissa, I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you've been doing well. She says, so if I'm a Bigfoot that lives in a cave, I can be exposed daily to bats. All bats carry Rona. Doubt they catch the disease, probably immune. Yeah, it depends on what you're exposed to. I mean, I grew up on a farm drinking, milk that was brought from the dairy next door. Yeah, it wasn't pasteurized. It was just farm fresh milk. I grew up on farm fresh eggs, local raised honey. It wasn't until we moved off the farm after we sold it years later that I even started getting colds. When you live with stuff that's brought from your environment, you develop a lot more tolerances to things. And I think that's even now why my wife, who grew up on like 2% milk and stuff like that, which to me just tastes like water, but she's lactose intolerant, so we have to get 2% milk. That's why I think she is more susceptible to stuff like colds and things like that than I am even today. She catches colds or the flu a lot easier than I do. Now, generally, if I get sick, I'm freaking sick, but then I don't get it again for 6 months or more.
Oh, it's the same thing when my grandparents came from Sicily and they bought a farm up in upstate New York. That's all we ate. Chickens are running around, everything. I was brought up on the same stuff you guys were. I mean,
yeah. Same. Yeah. That was my mug.
There's another one to crack you up. Mondoc says, Werewolf, I about got taken behind a blast fence for some training when I washed the mugs in my first shop.
Training, yeah.
I had training, wall-to-wall counseling.
Some counseling. Yeah, Cowboys 5 Rings had an interesting comment there, DA, about Mount St. Helens.
Yeah,
I believe this is the one. Cowboys 5 Rings says the story about the Bigfoot bodies discovered after the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption is very interesting, although the military has covered it up. The funny thing about those stories coming out about the Mount St. Helens bodies discovered is the fact that it's corroborated from multiple sources. It's not just one guy telling these stories. There are dozens of accounts of people saying they saw the military hauling bodies out by the truckload. And not all of them were like, now we know for a fact that the Department of Natural Resources and the National Guard hauled out like bodies of bears and deer and elk and everything and had to burn them. But from the reports that talk about bodies of Bigfoot type creatures that were taken out of the area, they all consistently say these were not taken to the same burn piles the others were. In fact, they were taken out of the area and never seen again. Some taken out by helicopter. So that story about coming out of Mount St. Helens is very prevalent, and it's coming from multiple sources. Anthony, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, man. Didn't mean to.
I don't know if you guys heard the story about. Trying to think what show it was on. The former SEAL was talking about him and his team that went into the mountains of North Carolina that hid down.
I've heard that story about the renegade tribe that was killing people.
Yeah. And this guy was one of the SEALs. This guy was a SEAL. He was dying of cancer, and he finally came out and started telling his story about it. How true that is, I don't know.
There are a lot of stories that talk about special forces groups that have been tasked to go deal with renegade cryptids. And that's what gave me, a lot of those stories were what gave me the idea for the code name Wild Hunt. I'm like, well, if there are groups of military doing this, it only makes sense that there's a team out there that does this. And when I published the first book, I got some interesting phone calls from a couple of guys I know that are still in the special forces. I hit a little too close to home on a couple of things. Was making some folks nervous.
Yeah, man.
that one missing 411 case in Montana with the little boy. Somebody spotted a hairy creature, and then the boy went missing. Next thing you know, there's a chopper full of Green Berets being brought in to do a search.
There are a lot of stories that involve special forces going looking for these things.
Well,
so yeah, I mean, that's one story. He had, I think, was it Dave Politis had it on one of his shows. He was talking about that, and he was like, "Why in a detached Green Berets to look for a little boy?" All of a sudden, So there's some freaky stuff going on that
Cam Buckner on his Dixie Cryptid channel, he just did a show, just did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about a group of Canadian special forces and law enforcement.
Yeah, I seen. I heard that.
For a group of Sasquatch
with that little girl.
I don't know about. I don't know about the source of that story. I may have to reach out to Cam and see if I can locate the source of that story, because I'd love to interview the guy. But it's a really good story if you get a chance to listen to it.
Yeah, the guy lives down here in St. Petersburg. He actually makes the comment. He makes the comment he retired to St. Petersburg after he left Canada.
I'm going to talk to Cam and see if I can get that guy's contact information, or have him reach out to the guy and give him mine. John Doe says cynocephaly are definitely a phenomenon. I was more referring to them likely falling more on the supernatural, exotic side of things. Yeah, they very well could. We don't know. And that's the real interesting part about cryptids to me, is how much we don't know. What I do say is there is far too many people seeing these things. My best William Shatner, far too many. But there are far too many cases of people seeing these things for us to just dismiss it and say it doesn't happen. Not to mention Native American lore and historical accounts going back centuries. There's just too much information available out there of sightings and written accounts, historical accounts, to be dismissive of it. You just can't dismiss it.
It's not coincidental, man. I mean, if this stuff has been going back since, it's been documented, firsthand accounts. So, just not coincidence.
Mondoc says, nice. Carrie, I'm building a 338 Lapua.
Yeah, get ready to spend some money on ammo, brother.
Yeah,
ammo's tough right now.
When you run the bolt on that thing, it doesn't go chink, chink. It goes cha-ching.
Yeah, count it. About $20 a shot, right? So.
John Doe says they're heavily connected with more supernatural aspects of mythology, such as the god Isis, or of course Saint Christopher. Yeah, and then of course you've got physical sightings, physical accounts as well. So, what the origin of these creatures are, it's impossible to say without ever having a specimen to study. That's why I don't ever rule out anyone's accounts, no matter what some people refer to it as the woo in Bigfoot, in Bigfoot research about talking about mind speak or telepathy or cloaking. I don't dismiss any of that because we don't know. I take every account for what it is. It's somebody's account telling what they experienced. And how we learn about these is we study accounts from across the country. We study a wide range of these accounts and look for commonalities. When we find those commonalities, those are things we can specifically say, this is existing across so many different accounts. This has got to be a behavior we can lock in on. I'm not saying that dismisses the other stuff, but that certainly gives similarities that we can bring into the study, and gives us a much better aspect to be able to try to, one, locate or identify these creatures, or two, to identify, much like Dr. Jeff Meldrum did, looking for unifying things to both acknowledge and or weed out possible hoax stories. Because if they don't have any of these consistencies, you're like, I don't know about that one. Trying to keep up with the question. Sorry, folks.
That's all right.
Werewolf 5674 says, when they say near human hybrids out there, they were talking about folks from Arkansas. Now that's down where Deliverance was a love story with a tragic ending. What we refer to as Hillbilly Romeo and Juliet.
It's like what we say up here. If you hear band music, start running. So.
Lois says, been scouting, found 2 different Bigfoot in separate locations that I can snap regular pics of next project. Awesome. Lene says, that was a really good Dixie cryptid. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Tony Harris says, handguns are for when your rifle doesn't work. They taught us in the law enforcement academy that the handgun existed for one reason, to fight your way to your long gun.
Yep.
And if I'm in the woods, you can bet your ass I've got a long gun.
Absolutely.
Mondoc 40 in research says, I've got a 50 Beowulf as well. Glad I rolled my own. The price doubled after the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about $200 for a box of 20 at least of 338. Yeah.
Northwood Scripted says, time for me to get in a nap before work. I'll catch the rest of this while I'm at work. Have a good night, everyone. Hey, dude, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a great night. Be safe, man. We started out with an Aleister Crowley show, and Dell wound up dragging right back into Bigfoot. It's funny how that just kind of shifted. It wasn't planned. It just happened that way.
It went from the books. That's why, because we was talking about
crossed
books.
over into the books and started talking about cryptids.
There goes the topic.
Embrace the topic. But in my heart of hearts, cryptids are what I most love talking about. Aleister Crowley was a cool subject. Josh Jones is the one that mentioned that as a subject. But once you've talked about his history and his connections, once you've actually laid all of that out, at that point, there's really not a lot left to talk about. But it's an interesting subject. I mean, there's a lot there that's really interesting about the guy. But once you've kind of laid all out his mystical connections, his occult connections, and possible connections to MI6, at that point you've kind of pretty much talked about it. But it is a cool subject, and thanks, Josh. Thank you, Josh, for bringing that in. Saturday, however, we are going to be going whole hog back into cryptids. Yeah. If you guys have heard anything at all about what they call the Highway of Tears in Canada, it's a section of about a 450 mile stretch in British Columbia where over the last 30-40 years, since the 70s, women have been going missing, primarily Native American. Now there are a lot of theories that it could be a serial killer, or possibly more than one serial killer. It could be animal attacks, but a lot of these women were just simply seen walking on this highway, then never seen again, no trace ever found. And much like the missing 411 cases, when you start looking at absolutely nothing left behind, no evidence, no trace, no eyewitness, no anything, you can't rule out the possibility of something abnormal that is at least responsible for part of these. And the simple fact that the Canadian government refused to even look into it until the late 90s tells me there might be something more to this than the Canadians really want us to know.
And I got a question on this, DA, relating to the cryptids that we talk about, the overlay with missing people, Bigfoot sightings here in the States, along with those subterranean systems. Is that along a big subterranean system up there in Canada too?
I will have to look into that, because the David Pilates missing 411, let me see if I've still got that one and that picture loaded. I think I do.
That's a good question.
That would be an interesting correlation right there.
Yeah, only map I've got from David Pilates is the U.S. map. I'm going to have to dig in to see if he did, because I know he's part of the Can-Am Missing Project. That's Canadian American Missing Project. So there's got to be a similar map that details Canada as well. Yeah. I'm going to have to see if I can find that map.
I'm just curious about that. I just got kind of rang a bell, and I was like, that'd be something interesting to delve into, because if there's some correlation there, that might be that's interesting. I don't know.
Well, along that area they call the Highway of Tears, there is a huge number of people that have, mostly women and mostly indigenous women, have gone missing. And when you look at the Native American counts all along the Pacific Northwest and throughout that area, Native American counts of Bigfoot coming into camp and taking people, usually women, but sometimes men or children, Bigfoot coming in and abducting these people, and most times they're never seen again. To me, that lends at least enough of a connection that it's worth talking about.
Well, that's what that story was about from Canada with the cop. They were abducting women and children, and they had hybrids.
And it was in that same area.
Right. That's what I mean,
And the simple fact that the Canadian government was aware of it since the 70s, but didn't start a formal investigation until like 1998 or 1999, to me says they didn't want to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, they hoped it would go away, and it didn't.
They're just keeping it quiet. Right. Just keeping it quiet.
Or they knew and they were just getting so much pressure. They had to, there's so much evidence out there. They had to, give something to try to placate people.
Exactly. Eventually, it got somebody in such numbers that they couldn't ignore it anymore.
Right. Absolutely.
They were probably hoping that the problem would go away if people stopped walking along that highway.
I don't see it. I don't see a problem here.
The ostrich head in the sand. I know nothing.
Exactly.
But we'll definitely delve into that on the Saturday show.
Cool. Now, has there been a lot of sightings on that highway of cryptids?
British Columbia has a higher per capita sighting of Bigfoot and Sasquatch than throughout the Pacific Northwest or anywhere else. British Columbia seems to be like the mecca for Sasquatch sightings. Well,
what about that stretch of highway? Is there a lot of sightings?
Right in the heart of British Columbia. Okay. And the thing about it is it's so sparsely populated. Mm-hmm. There's so few people that live in that area. That section of highway, basically, you're just traveling for miles and miles and miles through unbroken forest on either side of the road. Mm-hmm. So if you're walking, you're surrounded by wilderness. If you're driving and your car breaks down, you're surrounded by wilderness. Good luck getting cell phone reception.
Right.
It's traveling through the heartland corridor of the Canadian wilderness in British Columbia.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
And it's not like one or two women gone missing. It's dozens. But again, we'll dig into that more on Saturday. I don't want to jump the gun on Saturday's topic. I've been on the pictures. I need to catch up with the chats. Meg Mill says, DA just told someone about your cave 411 graphs. Awesome. That's you can look those up. The missing 411 maps. You can look those up on Google Images. That's where I got it. Or you also go to the Can-Am Missing Project, which is David Pilates' website. That's all the missing 411 and the Canadian American disappearances. And he's starting to actually collect stories of strange disappearances, much like the missing 411s from around the world. It's not just happening here. John Abraham says, I'd love to know the history of Claire Parker, too. That's one we can look into. Cowboys 5 Ring says, I think Pilates has mentioned the Highway of Tears. I could be wrong. I believe he has. I'm not the first person to draw the Bigfoot comparison. There are a number of places out there that talk about possible cryptid connection. Meg Mills says Canada is beautiful. Any place you've got that kind of wilderness, it's beautiful. Yeah. I love to see places that are virtually untouched by man. Mondoc 40 Research says there's a county in southeast Oklahoma named after a guy who led a raid against Bigfoot, maybe Big Feet. It's near where the Ouachita. I was knuckle dragging flightline mechanic Ouachita Mountains. Yeah, I know the story you're talking about. I want to say it was either Cherokee or Choctaw that fought a war against a clan of Bigfoot that were killing people and dragging them off. And I think the brother's name was, I want to say Tubby or something like that. Tubbee. I'll have to dig back into that. That's a story we should be talking about at some point. But it's a documented event where these group of Native Americans led a cavalry charge against a group of Bigfoot that had been killing people. And when they found their encampment and attacked them, there were piles of bodies.
Wow.
We just got verification from Tammy.
Tammy Lamb says, gotta go. Looks like, oh, crap.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Well, there we go, folks.
Things
are about to start getting ugly.
Yeah.
Marshall Sirota says Canadian government is as bad as the Parks Department and our government. I mean, it's not just the Parks Department.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Sam Melton says LaFleur County. Yeah, I believe if you look it up on YouTube, it's called the LaFleur County Bigfoot Massacre or something like that, or the LaFleur County Bigfoot War. But I've read the story before, and it's a really good one. But it's been a long time since I've read it. I don't remember all the details. It's one of those ones I read a long time ago. But when you look, the fact that that's in the same area as the encounter that's known as the Siege of Hanabi, where the family had to fight off a clan of Bigfoot that were attacking their house, that's right in the same area. I mean, not very far away.
Was that back in the 1800s?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I might have to check that out.
Nike Snow says Crowley owned the mansion next to Loch Ness Lake. Yeah, it was actually rumored that he had a Loch Ness monster sighting. The house he owned on Loch Ness is still vacant. It's mostly fallen down. But last I remember reading about it, it was for sale. They were looking for somebody to maybe come in and fix it up. That would be a cool place to fix up right on the shores of Loch Ness.
I'll go. Who wants to go with me?
I'll take it.
Yeah. I did a Loch Ness cruise.
Did you?
Right up to Urquhart Castle, and yeah, there's I may have seen it. I don't know. I mean, it depends on where it was, obviously, but I took it right out of Inverness into right up the loch. So
did you have a sighting?
Did not see anything, but it was ironically enough. A few days later, there were some folks out there that from Aberdeenshire that saw it. That saw something out there that was like, "What the hell is that?" So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I want to do that. I want to go to Scotland and do the Scotch tour. That's a whole different reason right there.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah, she sent you.
Lene Perkins says, DA, I sent you a map that shows the caves in Canada. Awesome. Was that on my email or on Facebook?
Another graphic for the show on Saturday night.
Heck yeah. Sent the map on Facebook Messenger.
Well, I mean,
Awesome.
and, as mountainous as BC is, man, I would not be surprised. They've got to have some cave systems there.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. Let me swap over. So I'm pretty sure she sent that to my author page.
Ooh, mercy. I got a few more minutes in me, DA, and Anthony,
Yeah, I'm heading there myself. Let me see if I got that.
I'm fading fast.
I'm going with you.
Gotta go spend some time with that good-looking blonde-headed girl.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep you away from her because I don't want her mad at me.
No, she wouldn't get mad at you. She's like, "You gonna do your show?" I said, "Yeah." DA texted me while I was driving.
I got that map, Lene. I got that. I'll give everybody a quick sneak peek at that. I guess these are major cave systems around the world.
Look at BC, man.
Up
there.
Look right up there through British Columbia.
It's
right up there.
It's loaded with it up there.
Yeah,
Wow.
right up Main Street, man. Heck yeah. It follows right along with American Rockies, right up into the Canadian Rockies. So.
Sure does. So that's something we'll dig more into come Saturday. Again, hope you guys will check us out on Saturday when we're going to be digging into the possible cryptid connection on the Trail of Tears through British Columbia, where so many Native American women have gone missing. Really, really going to be an interesting discussion that night. And again, I'm not saying that 100% of the disappearance is cryptids. I'm not saying that. But much like the missing 411 cases, there's enough really odd disappearances in that you can't rule out something completely out of the ordinary. Some of them have gone missing without any trace whatsoever, and nothing is ever found. If it was a serial killer, you would think something would at least eventually be found. So it's like the missing 411 cases. There's something going on here we're not aware of. John Dose is dropping off due to connection issues in a certain major geopolitical event. I understand, man. That's kind of where I'm heading. Lene Perkins says it isn't very good, but it gives an idea. Well, it's pretty good, and it's a good starting point for me. I'm definitely going to be digging more into that. Well, folks, I hate to wrap up on y'all, but this is a kind of a good jumping off point. Again, join us Saturday night when we're going to be talking about cryptid connections with the Highway of Tears up in British Columbia. And appreciate you folks joining us. Doc, thank you for jumping in on us, man. Anthony,
My
thank
pleasure.
you for joining on short notice.
No problem, man.
I think we really covered the topic and then some. And hope you guys will check out the new releases that we have available. We have the new audio book narrated by Sal Passos, which is Lost Legion, Perdition's Flames, available on Amazon. And the newest print release is Lakeview Man 3, Lakeview Man Beast of Blunk Road, available on Amazon. And you can find it through my website as well. Hope you guys will check those out. And appreciate you guys a lot. And for those of you who are members of the channel or members of the Patreon, look for the video that we posted, the exclusive content that I shot down at Blunk Road earlier this week. Hope you guys will check that out. If you guys are members, again, it's exclusive content for members of the channel and the Patreon. So I hope you guys will check that out and enjoy that as well. And look for more videos like that coming very soon. Doc, I know you're tired. I know you're looking to get home, get up there with Angie, and hope you give her my best.
We'll do it, brother. We'll do it. Y'all have a great night.
You too.
Good night,
brother.
Doc.
Anthony, thank you for being here, man.
Night, Anthony.
No problem. I'll see you Saturday.
Right. Yeah. See you Saturday.
If you need
All
me,
right,
I'm here, man.
We'll do.
Right.
I'll let you know.
Right
Appreciate
on.
y'all.
All right.
You guys have a good night. And folks, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Said it many times. Writing and stories are journeys that we take together. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking this journey with us. It's been a hell of a good time, and I can't wait to see where it takes us in the future. So I hope you guys take care. Have a great week. Be safe. If you guys are experiencing any of the bad weather that's going through, I hope you stay warm and don't lose power. And hopefully we will see you guys on Saturday. And again, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, hit that little alarm bell, and share the video with your friends. That helps the channel grow and helps us to reach a bigger audience. So thank you guys very much. And we will see you guys on Saturday. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you for joining us tonight on DAX Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?